Finance meeting. If I could just first of all apologise for advancing the meeting to 9:30, but unavoidable. Just very briefly, you might like to know the marina development, which I'm part, is because of the new fire regulations after Greenfell, is now under extreme threat about cladding and God knows what, which is could be pretty major item to say the least. Might like to know that the government pay for everything if the building is higher than 11 metres and the building down there is 10.8.
Oh.
So the residents have to pay, so it's going to have a big impact on. And it says in the official report that government what to do in events of hardship is the last item you've got is to go to the MP. It smiles sweetly, but whether that's going to work.
He's never liked the development.
Anyway, and I'm in top with it, that's why I've put it. It also is relevant to item 7, which is the repayment of yellow lines, which I've got to disappear for. So. Anyway, let's get started. And apologies for absence.
Apologies from Councillors Clark and Howard.
Okay, item 2, confirmation of the minutes. The items I'd just like to clarify is, first of all, we agreed last time that we would make funds into the CCLA bank account. Tracy, can you give me a little
Yes, £50,000 was transferred on the 6th of March. So that will show on the bank statements at the end of this month.
Okay. The only other one I'm aware of is the Lido shelter, which isn't carried forward. Do you want to say a few words on that?
Yeah, we put in the application and it's gone through the approval and is now stuck, I think, in the finance department. So if somebody could rattle the finance department, that'd be good.
What, tendering?
Yeah. And what I've done is I've put it through as the shelter only because we're struggling to get proper quotes on the electric light. So I'm going to put that through separately. I mean, it may only be 1,200 quid or something like that, but I thought might as well get the shelter going rather than holding it all up for the electrics.
Yes.
So that's been passed according to Chrissy, but it's then into the finance department to tick it off. And she sort of, her explanation was a bit of a black hole, I think. But if you could...
Yeah, I'll have a word.
Okay.
So that's what it is.
Is there any other items on the minutes? In that case, could I propose this as a record? Seconder? All in favour? Okay, members are reminded of the requirement to disclose any interest in relation to items on the agenda when these are discussed.
I will, item 4A, your report, the chairman's summary, the final item, the cricket club invoice. I will actually leave the meeting as district councillor because it's a grant involving tendering.
Okay.
I suppose, like you, I should claim item 7.
Well, I will have to because I'm on the management committee. But
I'm just a resident. Do I need to?
I don't think you
I
would.
don't think you do.
Okay.
Okay then, so item 4A, the chairman's summary. Just a few things. First of all, all the numbers are attached as always. Nothing really to report. It's sort of more or less all the income and expenses are sort of broadly in line with predictions. They've only got 2 weeks to go before the end of the year, so all will be revealed at the next meeting. But it's looking okay at the moment as far as I can determine. There is, I have to say, there's a few little issues in there that have sort of been secreted away slightly. So I think we should, at the end will sort of become clear. There's 1 or 2 underspent items basically. So we'll use that to our advantage.
Yes.
Hopefully get good results. And there's a few other things come in laterally which I can talk about. So that said, just going forward, the one thing we just need to put on the agenda going forward really is it's been hard going for the administrative staff the last few weeks. The town guide So we've got those three things, so it's a perfect storm, and it has caused a bit of pressure, which we need to at least resolve for next year. Sorry.
Can I just say, I think Julie's done a great job, and I think it's important we record that, because you have been under pressure. However, I think the allotments could go out in February and don't need to be this late. And really, the boat park wants to be March 1st. And if we could do the town guide earlier, it seems to me ridiculous to come out in April for a 25 handbook. I just can't see the logic of that.
So that was driven really by necessity and resources. But for next year, what I think we can do is, because it is generally the similar kind of advertisers that advertise year in, year out, is I think, so we've got, me and Julie have got a meeting beginning of April where we're going to basically look at next year's town guide, visit Brightlingsea, blah, blah, blah. And I think off the back of that, we'll start selling people for next year's, for the 2026 guide in April and May. Because then it gives advertisers a chance to spread the cost if they want. So we'll look at the POS system, see if that can do kind of direct debit, stuff like that. And I think also maybe offer an early bird discount as well. So all of this stuff should mean the town guide becomes much more manageable. And then we'll have a deadline of, let's say, sometime pre-Christmas, and then with a view to actually printing and going out in January. So.
And I think,
Very good.
sorry, exactly what Matt said, this did come up at the staff meeting last week. So we were talking about staggering them all then, weren't we?
Is that it? We'll just go through the three, just very briefly. The town guide is later compared to normal. What we're going to try and do this year, if everybody's happy, is to put the costs of the print and the artwork costs in. You get mixed up with next year, this year, and previous years, but financial years into next year, which is from April onwards, and then all of the income we get will go into next year's sales, which means we don't have a huge lot of debtors on the debtors list. So for the sake of a couple of weeks, I mean, it's not going to slow anything down, but that we've just tidied up the accounts. So we've sort of missed a year, but I think that, so if everybody's happy with that, we'll try and do that. If any monies are paid in the next 2 weeks, then they'll be prepayments, which will go to next year's sales figures. And that actually gives us a little bit of extra income, probably £1,500 that isn't in the next year's budget. So that's just a tidying up exercise. The allotment charges, we've just got to think about earlier in future to take the pressure off. And I've called the other culprit, which is the...
he was model councillor last
Well,
time.
I've got a note here. I have to say that the model councillor Morgan.
Is now a culprit.
I like being model.
So that's come at a bad time when we should have the invoices out early anyway. I just made the point that apart from getting the sales invoices out and getting the money in, we've got harbour charges linked to boats, which I think you've returned, you put the emphasis back on the harbour.
Yes, I don't see it's a charge that we should be related to, because it's a harbour dues. It's up to the individual whether they use the dinghy, whether it applies. And I don't think we should be collecting harbour dues, frankly.
And every plot attracts a business rate, so I guess we've got the response for that.
I think we should just send the district council a list of the people who've got the boat spaces for them to collect, because it's a charge they levy, not us. And again, I think the same thing. I think we should be responsible for collecting.
Anyway, so that's the plan to do that. So again, all monies received will go into next year's accounts. So what I thought it just might be worth making the recommendation that the sales cost invoices relate to these items that require review and require some of the management issues involved.
training them.
Yeah. So, but I think it's a good source of funds. And okay, the play group for an item. We've now got a model for charging for energy, and we're invoicing and receiving monies. We carry on each month. We invoice them for the energy used, and also an equivalent amount for last year's energy, and that's all working. And we should be paid up by June 25, because the start date was last July. So we're paying back. At the moment, I think if you remember, the total debt was 5,400. We're down at 2,300, but there's invoices going out for 1,500, so we should be less than 1,000, and we keep going to July. Having said that, it might be easy just to write it off, and then the extra money keeps coming in, and that just goes into the income file, just to make it easier instead of duplicating the accounts. So that's great.
So if we write it off this year, next year it just becomes pure income.
Yeah. And I think it's going to. I mean, that would be on the basis. I think that we've got to do the very last invoice on the last day of the year, so then, which is quite right, so that everyone knows where they are at the end of the year. And I think the total should be about 1,500 from where we are now. So that should be, it should be less than 1,000, so that's, I think, the write-off. It just saves
Should
constantly.
we be pleased we're getting it back?
As I just mentioned, the play group, the heads of terms have all gone out and have been returned and all of it, but it just seems to have died a bit of death, actually, the lease. Whether that because it reflects a rent increase, I don't know, but maybe it's time that we rev that one up a little bit and see where we stand. And we've gone this far, I think we should finish it off.
Yes.
And
Probably.
I mean, unfortunately, we do have to spend some money on the property to get it up to scratch. But once you've got to that point, it becomes a fully repairing insuring lease, which is good for us, really. So we'll do that.
Dave, can I ask them that if you spend some money on that, I don't know what is in the asset register, but can you capitalise that money to increase the cost of the value of the asset?
I think, again, I'm fairly familiar with the commercial world, but not local authority, but again, Trevor, the others, which I mentioned there, he's going to be invited here. I think we should ask him for guidance.
I think we can, I know it's cash, but we can actually increase the value of the asset.
But they always seem to keep our assets to the lowest level.
Well, but if we,
I don't think we play the game. That's the trouble.
Well, I think it's quite true.
but if we spend £7,000, then that is clearly a 7,000 increase. And I do know that. The problem we've got is with things like historic ownership of land, Western Prom is in at a fortune and it should be in at zero.
Yes.
But I think, I'm just jumping ahead a bit here, but I think the audit would say, well, because it's been like that for 20 years, you can either leave it or put it right. But because of possible asset transfers coming up, we should really get it right. In my view, the whole asset base.
We can ask you when we see.
Yeah. So then, just jumping on, there's been a bit of confusion, which we tried to clarify last month, successfully I think, about the transport and maintenance budgets. In total, we're predicting £37,000 of expenditure next year, after April 1st, so, and rising. So it's important to get that right and overcome any, just clarify who's doing what and when and what it. So we've now said that any significant items are going to channel through this committee, which is good. But I just thought I'd report that we did have a meeting with Terry and went through his concerns, really, and it was very positive. And what we agreed is, but on our summary sheets you just see transport and maintenance, but we actually, they're recorded in 12 elements, which we don't normally distribute for this meeting. So it obviously goes to let him see those, so you can see in detail what he's spending So that's, so I think that was a step forward, and if I could just tell you, Terry was very positive support, but understood the issues, and he's very compliant, is that the word? I don't know.
Helpful. Helpful.
Yeah, without hesitation. Right, the next one is the, I think most of you probably know, the Haven rent review was due in November 24. And we did say, we sent them a legal note to say that it's, well, time is not of the essence, which means that whenever we get round to agreeing a review, it's backdated to November 24. And that's been correctly notified. At the moment, it's quite difficult to find somebody to help us with the review. It is complicated, and you've got to have a thorough understanding of what such parks, what the trends are at the moment, the rest of it. It's certainly, if we secured some advice, it's going to cost us more than £10,000 fee. So the suggestion is that we write to them and suggest we use CPI as the basis.
Yeah.
So we'll go back to when the lease first started, apply CPI, and then knock off any interim increases there's been, and that should. I think that's a very fair way of doing it.
I'd very much support that, because I know that industry is also struggling, and I think I don't think we'd get any more than that if we asked people like Federite. I don't think it would support any higher.
We'd lose because we'd have to pay their fee.
Yeah, exactly. So I would support that.
Well, we did approach Fenright, Chris myself, a couple of weeks ago, because we were told they were the experts, but they declined on the basis, they said they're not experts and you need one. So they were very helpful. And they were, the chap, he gave us a lot of advice, but he said they can't help us. And the recommendation is that we go to loan on the basis of CPI and see what transpires.
And that's going to make it easier in future years as well.
Yeah. And I think it's a real help to them too. I think that it shows that we are understanding a little bit.
So that's that. Next item is the.
I am going to say that I am uneasy with what is being proposed, but as a district councillor who issued a grant, I need to leave the room.
The issue with the Cricket Club is, just so you know, doesn't affect us really, but they've now spent quite a lot of money on building regulations, which to me seems premature, but that's what they've got to do as part of their funding requirement set by the FAA. So they've now finished the building regs and they've formally applied and they've spent the money in so doing. And generally they say that the fundraising is going reasonably well. At some point we've got to think about the lease, and it may be they need an agreement to lease in advance of receiving any funding, but that's not around just yet. What they've asked is if we invoice them for, it'd be about £15,000 for monies involved in enabling works, so that would be demolition and that sort of thing. They've received a grant from Tenbury, which is why Jane's gone, which runs out shortly. So they want to know if we can invoice them, hold that money for enabling works until, and if obviously if the thing doesn't transpire, then that's returned. That will be returned back to Tenbury. So that's the proposition. We did discuss it as FCA and thought that was well worth doing, but it must go through the meetings.
You go first, because I've had to say already.
I was just going to say, our Tenbury District Council are okay with us doing it this way, because if it's their money,
Yeah.
and their grant.
Well, there was two things that I mean, FCA sort of agreed that we should do that, but I think, as far as we're tendering is okay, but I think my view would be we should go ahead with this following approved by tendering and the internal audit.
Yeah,
I'm okay with that.
yeah, I'm okay with that.
Can I totally agree with that, but I didn't like the fact that we were going to invoice for demolition and things like that. And I thought it would be much more valid if we invoiced for temporary storage or something like that, because for them to knock down that building, we've got to go and find somewhere to put, we've stuck in it.
Yes.
So you see what I mean? So it actually is something that we have to do and we have to pay for. Somebody.
Well, sorry to add, it would, my view is on the invoice it would appear as enabling work, which is the normal contractual expression for anything before you start building the thing.
Okay.
Yeah, which is fairly true.
And that's a standard.
I absolutely agree with what you're saying. I think we do need to check with tendering, and I do think we do need to check with our auditor. And as long as they're happy, then I think we're happy to do it. But we're only trying to help the review club, basically. But I don't think we should do anything which is not good.
Oh, no, I don't know.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
So it'll be enabling works or something, that'll be the wording, which is the normal contractual expression. Okay, then,
We go and get.
oh, yes.
Any other business though, which you can speak?
You make them.
Okay, then the next item is that we might have to minute the fact that the Heritage Pier, that we may have to, because we may have to return the money, I mean hopefully we won't, but we'll have to know at the end of the year's accounts, which is coming up very rapidly, we've got to put a provision in, or it might be contingent liability to say that we may have to be repaying some significant money, and that's a requirement of our account procedure. That's one thing, and the other thing is that I think we should send a notice to any associated partners of possible action. So, for example, any consultants who are involved would have to, you just put them on notice that there may be action that they're involved with. And again, that would be the normal way forward. And well, we don't have an option. That's what we have to do. So my view is it should be minuted now, but we don't have to do anything until we're preparing the final accounts. So we've got another 4 or 6 weeks. Things might have clarified or changed or whatever. But I think we have to do that as a.
Who sends the letter to the third parties? Is it us or do we need the solicitor's letter?
Well, normally, I mean, if it had got to the point where it wasn't a letter from I mean, obviously they're a statutory authority. If it was a legal letter, I would say we've got to respond with a solicitor's letter. But at the moment, I think we can just, we just say, we advise them of that situation.
So we just write a letter.
Yeah, and if it builds up to the point where it's, I mean, we've just been advised it may happen.
Yeah.
So it's at that level. We hope it doesn't. But if it gets to the next level, where it's getting legal or whatever, then we have to.
So do we put provision in for the 75,000 of the grant and costs for the consultancy, or do we just put provision in for that?
I think the provision is just for the lump sum,
Right.
and then the note to any associate parties, like consultants,
Yeah.
and there's possibly others. We just notify them that there may be action that they're involved with.
Right.
And that would be the normal way of.
Yeah, I definitely think we should minute it. Obviously, we're going to discuss it on Thursday, probably, aren't we? So.
Yeah. And then on at the next time now when we're preparing the accounts, we'll be that much further on. We know whether it's over and done with or it's.
That's the great
expenditure was £84,476.73, and bank balances totalled £147,905.24.
Okay. Any queries? Okay.
No, it's all good.
Item 4C, you'll see we've now changed the name to credit control.
That sounds better.
And you can see that the outstanding lease monies, which are not overdue yet, they total 22,000 out of the total debtors of 26, so it's just dominated by leases which are due at the end of this month. So it's looking out healthier than
Very
I
good.
noticed in the minutes of the last meeting we sent a letter to the debtor in the town guide. Did we get anything back?
We did.
Oh, we did.
I got an email back asking, I continue to receive statements on an advert. I cannot find any correspondence from you or me regarding an ad authorising its placement, or am I missing something? So we went back and told them who it was dealt with, and it was agreed on the 6th of November 23, and he said that it seemed to have slipped in your guide and I hadn't been included in the loop. I chased yesterday any update and I haven't had a response.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you know, I just think we need to put a line underneath this and send a letter saying
No,
this
we
is the
don't.
most disappointing.
We don't need to put
I'll chase him every day if you like. I'll invoice him every day.
I'll talk to you.
Email
about-
every day, yeah.
Do you think we should pursue it?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is. I dealt with it, didn't I?
Yeah, you dealt with a lady called Sharon.
Yeah. I've
Or
got,
you or Julie, I'm not
I've
sure.
got
Yeah.
written.
We've got it and we've told him.
You got written
I've got written permission. Yeah, written
Yeah, she
authorisation.
agreed it on the
Okay,
6th of
I
November
didn't realise
23.
that. I
We've
thought-
got that in
to
writing.
give her the invoice then.
Yeah, I'll.
Can I, just before you do that, I think it would, we keep on talking about getting a credit control company, and, you know, we pay for 15% or whatever it is and let them do it. It takes it away from us, and it also takes out all the internet, all the interconnections that could be established and or aren't established, and it just leaves it to professionals to say, go and get the money.
Well, I don't think a credit control company would be interested with
No.
that.
No, I mean, you can contract with them and say you get everything that we go over 60 days or something.
Personally, I think with the town guide, what we wanted to do this year, which is part of the reason it was delayed, was we wanted everyone to prepay.
Yeah.
And it just proved to be a bit difficult. But I think if we could set that up, it really does take any of this out in the future.
I agree.
So I think that's one of the things we really are going to kind of set ourselves a challenge and say, right, we are going to do this as prepaid, because the amount of time we've spent talking about 60 quid is a bit disproportionate. But that said, I'll talk to you afterwards about it, because I'll dig out the email.
If you've got written proof
I
and
think
stuff.
I wouldn't have done it. This is what I do for a living.
I think Julie's got it,
Oh.
the written proof. You probably sent it to her or whatever, but she's got it. That's how we know it was confirmed on the 6th of November 23.
That's what you're saying, it was kept out.
Yeah.
Can I ask the named ones we've got at the bottom? What are they? Stockwell?
It's a large amount, isn't it?
It is.
That was for a memorial bench.
Memorial bench, yeah.
The one above it was for a bench up which Julie is chasing, and the one above that for £30.24 was for the Heritage Pier, which Councillor Morgan was going to chase.
I put a call into him, but I haven't heard him back yet. But I'm still doing it.
So the memorial bench has been invoiced out back to them.
Yeah, that's what that is.
We need to chase them then, because they're over their 30 days.
I must admit, I think it's a complete distraction personally. You know, the outstanding 60 quid.
Yeah, no.
It's absolutely. There comes a time when you make notes about these sort of things, but you just we've got to move on at some point.
we've not done anything wrong.
No, no, I understand that. I understand the emotion as well involved, but that might. But if you're going to, so what we're doing, how we're going? You can have a.
Leave it a chat.
Oh no, we've got the proof, haven't we? So you've sent that off. Well, leave it at that. See what happens. You've sent the proof off that yes, what?
Well, we told him the day. I've sent him the advert, which he knew nothing about. And we've told him it was dealt with by this lady's name and agreed on. I can resend that to him and yeah.
Yeah, happy with that?
Yeah.
Okay. I move item 5, budget review. We're back again to the budget again, I'm afraid. A lot of numbers, it's not too bad. If I could just remind you all that we agreed a 5% precept, which just about covers the expected increase in payroll. We've also got £10,000 earmarked for police services. We've had to find £7,000 to pay for the play centre to update that in ready for leasing. The boat park, which we thought was going to be 30,000 net, is actually 22,500 gross. So it was going to be 30,000 net with any expenses. Now it's 22,500 before expenses, which expenses are units. So, and then at the FCA meeting, the list came out of additional items, even though we tried to fix the budgets 2 months ago for £27,000. Bits and pieces. So that I would call that shock horror, really. So that's a bit bad, but been through it again. So I just thought and there's a sort of solution to this. So I just thought if we don't mind going through a few more figures and then seeing where we are and then make a few decisions. So that was okay. So in the second column from the right, suggestion was that would increase the contribution from the Beechwood to £10,000, which was rejected. So it was £5,000, but included £5,000 from the same source for community events to be determined. The boat park has dropped from 30,000 to 22,500. At the moment, that's guaranteed, sort of. Well, it is. But there's about another, we think, I don't know whether you've got any more on this, but about another 3,500, 4,000 could be in the pipeline because they're not all sold yet.
Yeah, we have got several spaces, but we've got several people we've got to invoice, and I understand, as of yesterday, Julia did invoice about 100, and there's about another 32 invoice. So I would have thought that would come up, but you know, it's the first time I've seen that figure. So
Well, it's hot off the press.
yeah,
But so if, we're looking at the worst case really.
yes,
So 22,500, and to the VAT, 22,500, but more to go, and I think that is the worst case situation. That's what's sort of been
muted.
mooted.
Sorry, Dave, can we go back to the beach hut? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Are we only going to sell the beach hut for £10,000?
No. This is. I think you're saying that's the contribution we put back into the council accounts, and the balance would be used for good causes.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
So we sell for whatever, but 5,000 goes into the pot, and then there's £5,000 because of what happened at the last meeting to go into common events. I mean,
So what happens to the rest of it?
We
So
go
if
to-
we let's guessing, let's say we sell it for 20 grand, what are we doing then? 5,000 in here, 5,000, 15,000. So where's the other 5 going?
the decision was to invest that, to spend that separately on community events.
That's what was agreed.
Oh, sorry, I thought that was.
So there's another lump which we decided would have to go to some deserving cause or something like that sort.
Yeah, I think it's more likely we'll get an 18 rather than 20, but anyway.
Yeah, no, I'm just using a round figure.
Yeah.
So there's another 3 going to go somewhere to community events.
Well, no, it could be another 8.
Another 8.
Oh, sorry, yeah, we've got it back now.
Which would be a nice thing to do.
Yeah. So that's, I'm just trying to, I was just trying to sort of make it fit. So if I just go down this the comms and see how does it work. So that's the income. The items, the shaded items are all, if you look on the other sheet, they're all related to a breakdown. So just going down the list, the legal fees we just got, which is exactly the same as last time. So the legal fees of £8,000 were broken down into its component parts, and that was sort of agreed. The transport machinery and the maintenance, the same applies, same as last time. The equipment and signage is broken down, same as last time. I'll get to the punchline in a minute. And the landlord's improvements at 7,300 for the playgroup was agreed last time round. The contingency to try and balance the books, just knocked £1,000 off the contingency. So that goes to 2.5 to 1,500. And then at the bottom, which is the key item, is vote for its add an assortment of things, partly as a result of the discussion with Terry and other items. That's 8,300. So that ends up with a surplus of 20,000, which is what we said. If we get another surplus of 20,000, and that goes into next year's accounts, then our reserves are looking good. Certainly they've gone from red to amber, that's for sure. So that would be a comfortable position for the year.
Can I just make one point though, because we had this discussion and the course on playground, if you remember, I think he was saying that was maintenance. You won't get section 106 money for maintenance.
No, they don't. So if you look at, I'll come out of the trace. So if you look at 44, the breakdown of that, if you look on the next sheet, these were closed. Alright. So it's similar to last time round, but we've got CCTV for the board. So this is in the budget, in that figure. So we've got CCTV for the board park, which we agreed last time round. The good news is the progger has gone from 2,500 to 1,000, and possibly less. Paulson's playground, that's it's not. We've applied to a different budget, tendering maintenance budget for £1,900, and if we add the £1,500 to that we put in our budget, we should be pretty close.
Can I just add to the point on the CCTV, the boat park? I had a word with James, and I'll see him next week, because it seems like they haven't taken away the camera, and it may be that we can actually link into that camera if he's going to leave it there, so we can actually use it, and therefore we may not need to buy another camera. So that would have a good effect.
That would happen. So the Paulson's playground is a combination of the money that we've just put in forward. It's not 1/6 money.
That's not what it's It's just I didn't want us chasing money that we were going to get.
No, there is a maintenance grant for, particularly for playgrounds and things like that.
I mentioned that last time, so it's
Can I just come in on that? Nick Barry had a phone call after the staff meeting last week, and the maintenance budget is only on Temporary District Council playgrounds, which ours isn't. So I was asked to send the quotations off to, I think it was Andy MP, who was going to look at 106 to see if there was a way around of doing it. Yeah.
Chrissy goes right.
Yeah. So I sent that off on Thursday last week. Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know.
Do you know if Nick got anywhere with the broom
No.
conversation? Because that was what I was going to say
Yeah,
about
yes.
the Ventrac broom. That's not, that is an expense that Brighton City Town Council is putting up with or spending on behalf of Temporary District Council not doing that stuff.
Yeah,
It's certainly been part of a conversation, let's put it like that.
Nick asked for a copy of the hours used, which Terry gave. So Nick's taken that further.
okay. Now we'll bear that in mind. The Bayard playground, Terry seems to think £500. There's a bit of work to do there, so £500 should deal with it. So again, these are in budget at the moment till you change them. scrapings of the, which we're going to distribute, which is not
It's not going to happen.
so there's a bit of contingency there. The blower, small item, but that's Terry's agreed that should come out of the repair and replacement budget, which is already in, so that's okay. Then the allotment tank, that was originally that was only 3,200, but the Lido has now donated their tank, which was on the roof of the pump room, which you'll see is no longer there. So that's been donated to the allotment. So we only have to put a base down, which is 600 quid. So it's gone from 3,200 to 600. That's not as big as Terry would ideally like, but that certainly will get us past go. I mean, it's significant. It's about 20 tonnes of water. And for those who don't know, the tank fills up from a borehole, which is functioning, and then the borehole, then the tank is used to distribute water around the place, and we do get quite significant saving in water charges, so it is an investment.
Yeah.
And the other thing to bear in mind, the tank is part of one of the FA's requests, so if wouldn't matter right now, but if we want any more money from them, for certainly up there, then to have our own irrigation system would go down well. So if you look at that, so that's the easy bit. So that goes across into the budget and it looks okay. Forget the first reserves, go to the next one down is omit. So the things that we're looking at and which Terry would like, we're going to have a CCTV system that can move around or relocate it. At the moment that's been omitted. The lozenge fence, which is getting a bit dodgy, that's omitted for the time being. The wheels on the goalposts are bent, so they've been omitted because they're not used very often anyway. And we want to try and do something about the gate. It should be gravel field gate, not gravel field gate. So at the moment those have been omitted, and the grounds manager seems to think he can live with those omissions, certainly for the time being. So then we get back to the problem area, which is put down as first reserves. What we'd like to do would be to put a sprinkler to be fed off the new irrigation system, which the FA would be very happy with. There's just a possibility we could go to the FA and ask them to provide that, but I don't know. It's one possibility, so we might be able to get a sprinkler somehow from some reserve or fund somewhere or other. And the other is the gates of the boatyard have been estimated at £6,000. So both of those items at the moment are in and are sitting here for
Can I
discussion.
just say something about the gates for the boatyard are pretty awful. We're hoping to repair them. When we had Max the Weldon come down, there's no, you can't weld them to rust. It's completely had it. Whether it can last another year or so, and it's not also very nice. So that 6,000 would be to a nice palisade that it would really smarten up the whole front. But there is another suggestion which would be a much cheaper option, which I'll talk to Terry about. And we can do, but certainly we do need to do something about those gates fairly soon.
Yeah. So at the moment, the first reserves aren't in, and obviously there'll be good thing to do. The other things being omitted, and that doesn't seem like a problem. So that's the best we come up with on the grant for next year. That's okay.
Yeah.
Can I just ask something?
Yeah.
On the grants, the standing and discretionary ones, have we had all the paperwork back from everyone?
I think I'm still waiting for one more.
Okay, and does that figure then account for the fact that the YMCA said they wouldn't be taking their grant?
Yeah, it does take into account that.
So that's £1,000. Okay. No, that's all. We need to look at the rest then to see if we can bring that down.
I mean, if we go back to the income, the 5,000 contribution to community events, I mean, that could offset the grants that we pay, and then that's easy, just a contract, which would help. anyway, that's an attempt to, Terry's quite happy with that, which is important. We've got a new system so he can have monitoring from his own expenditure with Tracy. And that sort of, I think meets the objectives, so that's where we are. Is that okay?
Yep.
Do we need to recommend acceptance, or we've already accepted
I
it?
think we would agree.
Like 3 times, haven't we? So, okay, examining of the accounts, item 6. Is Tracy?
Yes, if I could have 2 members after the meeting, please. We have 15 payments in the sum of £11,561.93, although 2 payments have already been authorised and paid, totaling £497.32. And just to confirm, statements of balances on the following accounts. The current account stands at £14,674.68. Premium account, which is the client account, £7,606. The second premium account, £35,474.89. The public sector deposit fund before the 50,000 went in stands at £1,009.24. The instant access account, £85,795.52. And the current T2 account, £3,344.91. And that makes a total on all accounts of £147,905.25. Income for February, as stated earlier, £48,640.21. Expenditure for February, £84,476.73. Income to date, 1st of April to 28th of February, was £461,580.11. Expenditure to date, £400,633.35. And the employee payments paid for February were £17,586.99.
Okay, thank you very much. Could I just jump from item 7 to, is there any A or B?
Yeah, just a quick one.
I was just going to say, I can hang around and do that.
Yeah, I can as well, but I'd rather you read them that, because I lose my voice by the lot.
I'll bring my glasses.
I've been starting to carry out an audit of our asset base to cover off. We now have, as you know, a land registry, so we can actually go on the land register and actually check these things. And I have to say, Graham and I went through part of it yesterday. Been going through it the last couple of days, and we really need to review this on two bases: the accuracy and whether everything is on it, because some of the properties are split up. Classic case is the Bateman's Caff, which was all in one property and then it's been cut off, and I'm not sure if that's in here. It just looks at the original one of the big piece and not the bit that's been chopped off. So I think that needs a review, which means that we need to spend a bit of money, because although we get free access, every time we want to see the detail we have to ask £6. So it's not going to be a massive amount of money, but I thought I'd let you know. But the other thing, and I think I'd like to call in Trevor Brown, the auditor for that internal auditor, is actually then give us a view on the true values of these things. And because there's some stupid rule, I think Dave already said it, that if we were given it by another council, then theoretically it should be only put in as 0. On the other hand, there's an argument that some of the stuff we own was back in Brightsea Town times, and that was a value then, so why should it be a different value now? So there's lots of conversations, and so what I'd like to do is carry on doing this, but also call Trevor Brown in to get a view on both this and how we handle the balance sheet. Because if we then pick up the other question about if we do some work on one of our properties, we should be able to capitalise the money we use there to increase the value of the property.
I fully support that, because we've looked at that several times over the years, and we've always had the advice that you shouldn't have these for true values, but I've always thought that was ridiculous. So I absolutely support the response to Taylor on that. It really is useful.
Yeah, and we've got an increased list of questions on the financial side.
Sorry?
We want to get Trevor in to talk to some.
Yeah. Well,
so that would be.
And that's what I have a whole list for them.
Exactly. exactly. So there's provisions we're talking about, and also how do you change this? How do you capitalise it?
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Is there any other AOB?
No.
I would like leave of absence if you don't mind. And, yeah, I've got that thing. So, sorry about that.
Oh, you got me, it's
Is
the,
there any, what else is that on the agenda?
Just as
Oh,
you
yeah,
know,
lines.
just that, and then we might ask the members of the public.
Ah,
If
There you
they
go.
see they're quite quiet at the moment.
Sorry,
The country's heading for a perfect storm.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Everybody's going to be affected. Yeah.
yeah, no, sorry I've got it, but it's...
Sorry, that's, I continue with net zero within. It's true, I know.
Item 7 is the repainting of the yellow lines at the water side. I understand representation has been made to the NEPP traffic regulation engineer, but there will be a cost. The cost is £500, and the proposal is that it has to come from the town council that we're requesting it, but then we can get the payment back from the residents down there.
what is, I don't know.
Right, waterside,
Yes. Yellow
the
lines.
development side, there was yellow lines there and they've all worn away. The NEP aren't that interested in coming in and redoing it.
It's their job.
Although, yeah, exactly.
how do they get the money from the fines?
There is a major problem down there. It's dangerous, as we all know.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a serious accident, and I was nearly the first one. So the only way it can be done is that there is a charge to do it, without going long-winded and fighting it. From what I understand, I'm only reading from emails.
Is it the residents who are asking
It's a
for it?
formal request from the residents.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
The people who
we
are in
can
the
get
houses
it-
along there?
Yeah.
the main thing is the email says we can get it done, take payment from yourselves, which is BTC, and you can recover the costs from the residents.
It's like privatising mining. It's
Yeah, no,
It's
I must
disgusting.
admit, recouping it from the residents is going to be incredibly hard going, because they're just about to get a whacking great bill on
Yeah.
the meeting he's gone to. So I think chances of us recouping it might be a bit, but it is dangerous down
Yeah.
there.
I think it's only the residents that it affects down there.
Yeah, well,
I hate
I
it.
mean, I
Am
don't
I-
think it's all of them. I think it's all the houses on the
Just
front now,
houses
isn't
on
it?
that front, and I assume they're the ones asking for it. They're the ones that are happy to pay. But yes,
But
we
they
would have,
can't get into
we
the
would have to
houses.
get confirmation that they would be paying before we go ahead. Yes.
Can we? I think it's not just that section that needs doing down there. So it's another sort of the Yachtsman side of the road.
Yeah,
needs
new with the
looking at as well.
Indian part.
Yeah, I mean it's that whole thing. I went down there to park the other day and I was like, I've got a clue where I can park.
And the work vans are right up to the bottom of New Street, so you
Yeah.
come round there, which is where I was coming from, and the lorry was coming the other way. There's cars parked on the other side. Not quite certain how we didn't hit each other, but
I wonder if, but I think we should have a fight over this because it's nothing to do with the town council. It's all to do with roads and
Safety.
parking, which is county council and technically district council.
who
So
should?
I will just say, is there a way where we just say, okay, we'll pay for it, but this isn't going to be, it's not the last you'll hear about it, and then we kick off about it afterwards. 'Cause it does need doing. If they're saying they're not going to do it without us paying, I think we should pay it and then kick off.
Well, I think perhaps is the first suggestion that we check whether the residents are happy to pay for it, because if they come back and say we want it done
Yeah.
and we are going to pay, then okay, we don't need the argument, do we? But I have to admit, I'm totally with you. It's not our place to
And
be.
at the same time, maybe go back to parking partnerships. Say, what else would you be doing as part of this? Because £500 for one yellow line
This is tendering's quote.
That comes from Councillor Barry, yeah.
This is from tendering.
Sitting on the
Because-
North East Essex.
Oh, he's
Marketing
sitting on it,
Partnership,
sorry,
or whatever
right.
it does, yeah.
Okay.
Maybe we just say, look, is this, are you seriously just quoting us just for one line?
There's two double yellow ones.
That's two for the price of one, buy get one free. You know, can you do the other side and, you know, while you've got your van there?
I
basically
think
do
it's a
bit more than
major
just-
safety issue.
Yeah.
I think that's what
This-
our
this is-
argument
I was
is.
going to say the other point about this is painted lines are not good enough. They've got to come down and check it as well. And when was the last time you saw somebody wandering around?
He's been back on the high street.
Oh, yeah.
Quite a lot.
Well, it needs to go down there as well.
Yeah.
Well, people are saying the lines are worn away.
Yeah, so if they're
Yeah.
broken, they can't enforce it, can they?
No. But to me, if you normally have got the signs up as well. You don't need lines, do you?
It seems so utterly wrong that Brighton City Town Council and town residents are subsidising these much bigger organisations. You know, it's not just with this, it's with that broom, with the Ventrac. Why are the bills being left with us?
So we're going to.
But it also sets a precedent as well.
Yeah.
which is,
Yeah. So we've got to go back to NEP. And
well, let's ask the residents on this occasion.
well, let's work both ways. I think we should work both ways. If they're prepared to pay for it, okay. But if NEP come back and we're arguing it's dangerous, I think the safety issue's got to be
Both
forced on this.
sides, and ask them, is this for both sides?
Can I ask a question? And also, I think the other thing we should do is talk to the police, traffic police about it, because they're the ones who are responsible for keeping it safe. So we should actually talk to them about how much of a hazard it is, because surely they'd have a weight.
It's become much more difficult in the last year.
The other thing I was going to ask is just when we were talking about lines before around the school, you know, the corners,
Yeah.
and everything about red lines and things like that, the residents weren't asked if they were going to do that. Were the residents going to have to pay for that?
No.
No, they weren't.
They asked if they wanted it.
They had to have 70%.
Yeah, but I mean, I understand they need, but they weren't asked.
No,
to
we weren't.
pay
I
for
live
it.
in Eastern Road.
So
I
why
wouldn't.
were these? Why is that lot asked being asked? I'm not one of them, so.
It's a precedent.
Okay, so we're going to recommend we go both ways. We're going to argue with NEP and say, under a safety thing, and we're going to contact the residents who live along there just to get clarification that
Would you?
if we can't, would you help pay for it? And until those answers come back, but yeah, I must be. This is first I've seen of this, so
It might be worth talking to our local policemen as well, about whether there's taking a police safety point of view.
okay.
Yeah.
You all right with that?
Yeah.
Members of the public.
Well, I'm going to come back with this North Essex Partnership.
I knew you did.
Yeah. South Essex Partnership made a profit. Last year we sat here and they said, North Essex Partnership, we've got a deficit. But they couldn't tell us how much it was. You couldn't make... I went to see Alan Goggin and... he said, two of the big peoples are gone. Mick Barry couldn't answer the question. We're going to take it on with the tendering. We're going to take on-street parking. Well, that fell apart and was never a thing. But where is... I'm going to ask Mick Barry, because he's our representative, what are the figures this year? You can't run an organisation where the accounts are not correct. And that's the thing that you, councillors, should be giving Mick Barry. He's our representative. Where is it going from there?
Yeah.
That's the thing that you
might have an answer to that because he actually had a meeting with them yesterday morning.
Well, let's ask that question.
At the end of the day, and when I was at Alan Goggin's surgery, at the end there was a woman there talking about it, and I was saying to her as we come out, at the end of the thing, it's Essex County Council's responsibility because they're the final people. They have somebody, this council mates, so really we shouldn't be paying for those lines down there. It's as simple as that.
No, agree.
It's in our rates, and the police that's nothing to do with them. But we said it all along, and Janet Aldridge will back me up. It would be a fiasco, and the North Essex Partnership. There's something very dodgy there that they can't produce these accounts, and they should be investigated. I spoke to Alan Goggin, well, he said, go and see McBrary, and they've got scrutiny panels at Essex, whole of these, where they scrutinise these organisations.
Okay, so we could.
Bring it up.
Mick's actually not very well at the moment, but
No.
we can always email him now
Yeah.
because I was with another meeting with him yesterday, and I know he had a meeting at 8:30.
And speak to Alan Goggin when he's here, and say to him, when was the partnership committee scrutinised? That's the thing. That's the thing, because I'll leave it at that. It's a farce.
Well, we can ask Mick, and we can let him know because he
Yeah.
might be able to get some information ready for Thursday.
But every road in Brightonsea needs a yellow line to be painted. The only yellow lines we got which are legal are where they've repaired the road and redone the line. So are we going to now say that every resident in Brightonsea who's got a yellow line outside the house has got to pay for it?
Yeah.
Exactly, it's rubbish.
The disabled parking spaces have to be paid for by the disabled people that use them.
It's not. I know you're representatives and you want to take it on, but it's not really the function of Brightonsea Town Council to take this on. And this will be the problem when Kendrick disappear. What's going to happen to, as Councillor Court says, these other things? How are they going to get done? Sounds all right, but I'll get off that subject.
Okay.
I'll go talk all day about it.
Can I-
Dave, you got?
Yeah, just change subject. So it's to do with the prom. I mean, you've got that monstrosity end of the prom which has been there for 5 years. You've got the paddle and pool liner is gone. You've got all the parking area turned back to marshland.
Yeah.
Is there anything being done? Is there been money allocated? I know tendering own a lot of it. Are tendering being chased up? The place is a mess. By the summer, you won't be able to park a car down there. The kid won't be able to use the paddle and pool, and that's one of our main assets.
So if I can answer about the grass car park, because it's something that we did speak about, I can't remember which meeting it was. It was a few months ago when we were talking about the drainage for the playground, and a couple of us said, well, perhaps if the drainage was okay, you wouldn't need to spend all the money on the playground resurfacing. And we did say at the time we were going to allocate some money to do a topographical survey of that area, so that we can start looking at that, because it should be making money. If everyone can park on that car park, then we can make money out of it. But you're right.
But has it been done? Have you had the survey?
So we know. So I think it was the FCA last week. The topographical survey hadn't been done. I can't remember off the top of my head when it's planned for or what. But the point is, you look on Google Street View. 5 years ago, there was not an inch of marshland on that grass car park.
Correct.
You look at it now,
Yeah.
you can see it from space. It's
But now-
literally you can from Google Earth. You can see
Yeah,
it
well, I
from
mean, we've
space.
been saying this for years. The whole lot's been seen. It's going back to marsh
Yeah.
and rubbish tip, which it was.
Which it was, yeah.
It was
And
massive rubbish. That's all rubbish under there.
The part
You don't know.
on the liner and the car park, which
Join-
is
Joining
tendering.
isn't going to cure the problem.
No, we are actually. Can I just say watch your space?
Right.
We're trying to get the best possible deal from tendering before they're not there, and I have
Yes,
to admit
That's the next thing.
they are working with us.
Yeah.
Nick and I had a meeting yesterday, and a really quick one, and they are more than aware they want to leave us in the best possible
Yeah.
best
That's a
possible
good thing.
place. So, and it's things like the liner, whether we end up taking on the padding or it becomes that, because we just don't know at the
No, I
moment.
know.
But the unitaries will not want to take on anything that is going to cost them money.
Yeah, but it's in progress.
It's under discussion.
But it's not quite as simple as that, because if we take it on, where do we get the revenue from to look after it? And that's the
Yeah.
deal.
You're talking a big expense every
Yeah, exactly.
2 years or so.
You know, and
Well,
it's,
we're hoping if we can get the liner replaced, but it's not replacing the liner that's going to cost.
No,
It's the scooping out of the
Yeah.
contaminated mud.
How is that contaminated? Never mind. we
Well,
won't go
yeah,
there.
you're
Yeah,
the
we
same
won't
as
go
me,
there.
but they say it's contaminated and
Well,
it's
you-
that
you-
that
you-
will
Well,
work.
you-
keep feeding, that's why.
But your other problem is, for the east of England, if you look at the funding, the last funding I could get from the House of Commons Library was for year 23. We were third in the funding. At the top was London, and then it went down Scotland, Northern Ireland, Wales, all the north. And if we're going to have this great changeover, how is this funding going to actually work? Are we going to be at the bottom of the bottom of the heap? And it's all right.
Nobody knows.
The whole thing that there's no flexibility. This government are blown off course because they've got the defence thing. So, and it will affect us. I know you think, well, it's local, but it will. They've been blown off course like most governments, and you've got real problems coming. And this devolution without money, and I studied it. I went to Scotland for 20 years. We've never had the right funding in the east of England, which we can.
Well, our chief exec's already asked.
He knows
the
that,
question
yeah.
At conference last week.
Yeah.
Our problem,
Please,
though,
can someone tell us where the savings are going to be, because it's going to cost twice
And
as
that's
much
why
as
people
it
are
is
not-
to leave us as we are now.
People don't understand, the people I talk to, what devolution actually meant. They never understood it when it first came in to Scotland and Wales. And my days in the union when I was thrown out, more or less, because I had too much mouth.
I can't understand why.
Well, I did. I stood up. I won't bore you, but I want the same benefits as the people in England. I stood up, and the union official came up, and they're not taking a conference, and they never really spoke to me. And basically, they want me at any more meetings.
Okay.
I know you won't want us here.
Yes,
I'm-
Ken.
No, right, Matt, sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
I was quickly say that they're, for the benefit of everyone, you can say there is a consultation from national government about devolution in Greater Essex live at the moment.
Yeah, yes, I know.
I know
Yeah,
you probably you would know all
yeah,
about it.
yeah, I know about it.
I only found out about it quite recently.
Yeah.
And I think if you encourage people to say those kind of things, then now would they actually get action on it?
Well,
I think we need to get some paper copies of that, because that's online, isn't it?
It is on
Yeah.
the
I think it'll be.
Too many people
It's
don't
also
know
not
some-
very good.
It's
No,
hard
it's not
reading.
rubbish.
It's extremely hard reading.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but that's only my opinion. I've shared it.
Okay.
I'll be
I
quiet.
can't see
anyway.
what, yeah,
Just-
Chris, sorry.
I'm just saying that one of the problems though sitting here as a local and bringing these down to the local level is that tendering turns around and says you can have the beach, the great swathes of land, and then a promise that will help you fund it.
And they don't.
And and do we sit here and accept promises, or do we say, whoa, we need more than promises? And that's the problem. I think we should own a lot of these things. I think back then we did own.
Oh, I know. My dad's up there. Right? He was a member of the
In those-
Urban District
In
Council.
those days, you paid a rate to those people.
Yeah.
Now all we've got is a preset. And for us to cover all those things, the preset would have to go up significantly. And their rate to the unitary isn't going to come down in relation, is it?
Can I
No.
just, what
True.
we've got to do, and again this was from the meeting yesterday, was we have to decide, the council have to decide what they would like. Tendering cannot be seen to be asset stripping.
No.
So it's quite cautious the way you go. You've got to put what you would like. Tendering are trying to work on a financial package to support us, but would only be either a lump sum or enough to support us for 2 or 3 years,
Yeah.
and then they won't be there anyway.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
But we also then have to prove that we can afford to continue to maintain what they are giving us.
Yeah.
So, if there's something
can't.
that's creating an income, example, beach huts.
The beach huts, yeah.
There's no way they're going to give us all the beach huts. I can tell you that straight away.
Really?
It's already been, we may be able to negotiate the ones that are on our land, but they will not part with all of them because the unitary's got to take an income in. But I'm using beach huts as an example. You have got to prove that if there is a another tidal surge that's going to take them off, that you can maintain them and put them back. So there's
Yeah.
big business plans, and I know Mick's just called a meeting because, you know, we've now got to decide what we want to negotiate with them, what they're going to offer us, but we've then got to prove. And unfortunately, that we've been told it's district councillors that will do the negotiating.
Yeah.
Well,
The other thing to add on to that is kind of what I said last week at FCA, which was, we do have to look at that. We do have to look at what we want going forward and what we don't want. But equally, we've got an opportunity over the next 12 months to really pressurise Essex and Tendring to fix stuff before they disappear.
They're aware of that, but we haven't got 12 months. I can tell you now, it's going fast,
Yeah.
and we've got to go in.
But before they disappear,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
let's say stuff like, the paddling pool, if that's not going
Exactly.
to us,
Yeah.
then they have to get that fixed.
Well,
before they
even if it
disappear,
is going
because
to us,
otherwise-
We want it
Do we
fixed.
want
What do you
it? Do we want? If they said, okay, you can have it. I mean, I for one would say no, thank you,
Yeah, definitely.
because we haven't got the money to
Yeah,
fix that.
completely.
And
Let's say there's also little things like those bollards behind the beach.
Yeah,
Alden.
yeah, those, they're all.
I know they're now scheduled to be fixed, but that would be something that's got to be done by the time tendering goes away, because otherwise you're not going to get the new North Essex.
There's
Essex,
a lot
We've-
to do.
There's
Yeah.
another
Make
example
sure
over there, Jane.
We
By
want
your
to make sure
relations.
that we take things on that give us
Definitely.
some revenue.
Agreed.
So, okay, the beach huts, but there's also the car parks, the other car parks. Yeah? We've got to generate some money if we're going to take on liabilities.
Definitely.
Sorry.
Another name up there, Cyril House.
Yeah.
20, 30 years ago, I had big arguments with Cyril about the boat lake.
Yeah.
And I said, you let it go rack and ruin. He said, well, yeah, you're right. If we'd have spent a penny on the rates 2 years ago, we'd have had the money to do it. And look at the state of that boat lake now.
And that'll be sad if for the generation coming up, I shall be dead
Okay.
in a few years.
Yeah,
I
I hope not.
You've got
One
to go.
question.
Yes,
You
Val.
mentioned earlier on where the town council are paying 10 grand for extra policing. I think we're wasting money there because we're already paying for policing on our general rates.
Yeah, it's
No, we
it's
aren't
only
paying that
we're
yet.
not paying it
We
yet.
haven't paid anything
No,
yet.
And
There's
also-
a suggestion.
How much 106 money is there available?
It's I think it's now down to about £60,000
Yeah.
because we've been taking lumps out of it.
Where is it going?
So that wouldn't even do the...
Well, that's unallocated.
No,
There's,
no.
well, in fact, some of it's going on the shelter by the Lido,
Yeah.
and then we've got to come up with other projects, and we're looking at other projects at the moment.
You want to consider a cycleway around the perimeter of the recreation ground for little people.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
you
yeah,
mentioned that
yeah.
before, yeah.
Yeah, there's a safe area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, 106 money will disappear. So we're well aware we want to use it to our advantage before.
I read that we were they're converting it to the community. For
CIL.
Yeah, CIL. On the paperwork. How long
Yeah,
that happens.
well, we
I don't know how, that's just something else, isn't it? Because it was Tendering's choice not to have CFL. They chose to stay with 106, but you don't know what the unitary is going to do.
No,
But in the
that's right.
paperwork, it definitely, from the government,
Yeah.
it definitely says they should be using CFL.
Another question, please.
Hold on,
You
there.
mentioned a total surge on the Button Lake side, the sluices work because
Yeah.
the town council look after them. On Porton's playground side, there was a big argument whose responsibility they were. If the water comes over the wall again, they should be serviced regularly.
They're being repaired.
Yeah, because they had
They
trouble.
have been done.
They had trouble getting the keys, didn't they? They didn't know
That's
where
right.
the keys were.
We are right.
So that-
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, just one thing, John.
No, of course.
So-
Do you want to
Talk about the playground.
Is that Mark Johnson? Is that the Heritage Trees land back that money, 75 grand?